I'm reaching my dreams with GUT. They're the ones for me. I'm reaching my dreams with GUT. They're the ones for me. Since 1983, they've been serving the country, and we like all their financing, giving the people what they want, what they need, what they love. Come and join the family that's here for you all the way. From birth to graduation, your first job to your home, and your card through your golden years.
The GT Credit Union has been actively supporting nation building through its many sponsorships and the programs including Financial Literacy Quiz, Pass the Torch Calypso Program, Junior Cooperatives in Secondary Schools, CPEA, and the TAMCC Grants. The credit union has helped many people make their dreams come true. Let them help you with yours. You don't have to be a teacher to be a member. So what are you waiting for?
GUT Credit Union, it's where you belong. I'm reaching my dreams with GUT.
The first in a series of webinars organized by GUT Credit Union. I am Sarana Mitchell, and I am your host. Today's discussion, preparing for the hurricane season. Are you ready? We are indeed in the middle of the hurricane season. And with me today are the first person, Superintendent Sylvan McIntyre. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
And how are you?
Absolutely fine.
Just just give us a short about who you are. We know you're the coordinator for NADMA, but just a short.
And you've Mr. McIntyre. I am substantively a police officer, superintendent, sub-derogated police force. I have a public service of part of my split career to actually definitely with the agency, and went on to serve at NADMA. I served within the region. I served obviously in Grenada, and I'm happy to do that.
And you continue to serve?
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. And with us also, welcome. And Mr. Marcus Purcell, you are the development underwriter at Beacon Insurance Grenada Limited. And a part of your duties is educating people about Beacon Insurance. So welcome on this panel.
I'm happy to be here.
Okay, thank you very much. Give me an update re-COVID for hurricane preparedness.
COVID-19 is an event we hope that we don't really have to speak about, but it has become the inevitable. Every conversation today surrounds COVID-19, and for management fraternity, COVID-19 has given us a new axis of focus in that we have to ensure that we do every PA that we put out, every person that we speak to, that we integrate the COVID-19 protocol, the COVID articulated on different programs in the recent past, that it has given us as an agency, as a country, a jump start, a forward start into our preparedness for an above average hurricane. That certain things are in place. The social distancing aspect of it is one where we have to ensure that we have different capacities. If people We love the challenge. It is the nature of what we do. Disaster management, hurricane seasons, etc. They're all challenging events. And so you just have to be innovative. You just have to be on the ball and just have to understand where the things are and how to put them in the right.
So, Superintendent, about NADMA and shelters, what new has been done? What new COVID-19 protocols, new protocols, what has been done?
What has been done and what is currently being done is something that we have to be speaking about every time. Cyclones, you have volcanic eruptions that can occur at any time, earthquakes that are occurring more frequently, and all of these, in the event that we have maybe a serious land slippage or something like that, so people have to use emergency shelters. But in the hurricane season, we have to ensure in particular because it's the annual threat that we face. So for 2020, we had to look at how we factor in the capacity, understanding that prior to COVID, persons were permitted a 3 feet distance from each other. Now we have to be speaking about 6 feet apart. That would mean more capacity. We have to speak about cleaning and sanitizing, etc. That has created now a different challenge.
Okay.
Because COVID can come down and people could be asymptomatic or otherwise, we have to ensure that if somebody comes down with something that we can recognize through the symptoms, that they would have to be isolated. And so the medical fraternity had to be in, and they have to also to be a integral part of what to do. So those factors we had to readjust, and there are some shelter guidelines and rules. So we had to rewrite them. We had to reintegrate or integrate some aspects of COVID-19 into our shelter rules. And people are not quite aware of them. So platform like what we're using now, this venue to give information, it will be quite useful to understand it is not business as usual.
Certainly.
So if you're going and having to use a shelter, there will be certain things that you are required to be prepared to do. We would prefer that if shelters are not the main focus, but that people would prefer to remain at home.
Well, you bring up
And that's
something-
another challenge.
You bring that up.
Yes.
If, for example, hurricane, how do you prepare your home as a shelter?
Preparing a shelter or preparing your home is not a one-off activity, and it cannot happen just overnight. The design of your structure has to be so engineered that it would withstand certain force wind. If you've not done so in the original construct, then there's a process called retrofitting, which means it reinforces the structure by certain aspects. There are some instruments, there are some physical items that one can use to reinforce their structure. If you have a wooden structure, or even there are some concrete structures that obviously have the wooden roofs with zinc sheeting, etc. These you can reinforce them with hurricane rafter straps.
Okay.
And there are persons who may have already built their house, and the eave of the house may be too far extending off the sides. So you want to ensure that eaves are very short as possible. So even that you can adjust. And that just two ways you can look at it. And if you have a structure in your house, or even under the stair, there's a little that people don't that aspect can become your safe aspect. So it is a lot you can do to modify your own place to make it the safer place to be, rather than trying to sacrifice your own space, your own type of freedom that you would want to have, to compromise that and to face a risk of having contract something that you didn't prepare for.
Family preparedness plan. If you were to have an elderly person with you, or even children and babies, what should you take into consideration?
Babies, or infants and elderlies, they would come into a special care package. And also, it's not just a national affair, it is a family affair, and it becomes a societal issue. Meaning that there should be some mechanism where people can have a plan to incorporate the physically challenged and the less able people within society. So there would be a special arrangement for them. You'd have to ensure that the medication they would require, the type of items that they would require to make their movement more easy and to make their stay comfortable, you want to factor that in first into your plan. And if there's any special item help you design a family disaster plan. It is just understanding and decide this is how we are going to do it. And this is a family plan. So to answer you in just a few words, when you're catering for elderly activity, and you must ensure that all that is really required, you take care of that first.
Okay, last question for the time being. Recommendations in safeguarding your home or a commercial space?
Okay. We've seen from recent experience, I would want to go back 15, almost 16 years, I think, ago, with Hurricane Ivan, where the recovery process was retarded, restricted, because people did not have the kind of insurance coverage and other thing that they should really have. Now that impacts on your livelihood, it impacts on the economy, it slows down the economy, it puts an added burden and stress on the economy if people do not have the right things in place and ensure that when someone... So if you have a business, you want to ensure that you have a business continuity plan. Inside of that plan, you'd want to ensure that an insurance form part of that. In our survey, have your house insured, but it's a requirement by some institution, and that is something that we can look at. So businesses, commercial space, you want to ensure that you want to build from the bottom up, that you have a plan, that you know where you are building, what you're exposed to, what kind of items that would be vulnerable, and how you would need to recover and sustain your activity as a business entity, and how you'd recover your family or societal life immediately after. And that comes in your little plan.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Very welcome.
Now, segue straight into insurance, because he's saying 2004 we found that important for homeowners insurance.
It's important because having insurance could replace the cost of building back a home in the event of a disaster, right? And as Mr. McIntyre alluded to, the natural disaster events and losses report by ANAN 2018 state that the cost or the economic losses incurred during a natural disaster is way, way, way higher than the insured losses. So for instance, in Ivan in 2004, we had about 11 billion in actual economic losses, but about 4 billion in insured losses. So you see the disparity. With Hurricane Maria, we had about 90 million in economic losses and 30 million in insured losses. So it's about 2/3 of the damage was uninsured. right? And that's them about by the very nature of the product is an intangible product, and satisfaction is not really derived instantly, like when you purchase something like a consumer product or so.
Okay.
So people tend to say, well, oh, I can't see where my money going, right? But those of us that, you know, was around Ivan and remember, what you find happening is that once they hear that a name storm is around, you see the rush to get insurance one time. 2 months before you're calling them and tell them, well, you know, your property is up for renewal. Whoa, come and insure it. Then, like the other day when Gonzalo and they heard that the name storm, everybody wants to rush and insure it one time. You understand? But it's very important to have your property insured. Without insurance, and when you insure it for the replacement cost rather than the market value, right?
Okay.
Because the replacement cost now will beat the rate of inflation.
Okay, understood.
You know, so you will get the property as is today.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, what are the steps in insuring one's property?
Well, first of all, some of the financial institutions will ask you to insure it, right? Because they have a vested interest in the property. But if you have situations where the person has no financial obligation, they tend to not really bother with the insurance, because we have a kind of love-hate relationship with insurance and financial products, in the sense that, okay, when time to pay for it, we don't want to pay for it. It's the last thing on the list to budget for. But in case there is a disaster, we like to be indemnified, you know. We want back the property, we want, you know, and we want everything just as is. So it's a mindset, and it goes way back to our upbringing in terms of the lack of financial education, let alone insurance. Insurance is a kind of taboo topic. People always see insurance as, you know, like a rip-off, because they can't enjoy the benefit.
Yeah.
But I will tell you something. In 2004, after Ivan, insurance spent $416 million to help restore and build back Grenada better. 400. And what happened is that we did not blow our trumpet loud enough and use the opportunity to educate people. So in case when time come around, our next disaster is imminent, people will understand what it is and the value of it. So we have to take some blame, you know, but going forward, and occasion like these always present the opportunity to educate the consumer, you know. So that is why we at the Beacon are always happy to embrace events like these.
Okay, so do you have data for now, the amount of people having insurance in Grenada? Do you have a pool where you can pull from data? Do you know any? Do you have anything?
Not exact data, but GAFIN produces a report. You know, with they have like general insurance. You know, but in terms of having that data, especially in the Caribbean, data, we don't really have a data bank. We suffer from that. But there's a need to compile these things so we could do proper assessment.
Okay. Yeah? All right. So what are the policies of Beacon Insurance regarding damage, the hurricane?
Okay, well, let me look at when you're constructing the home, because a lot of building and repairs are going on now. You have a policy which calls contractor as always, that is responsible for the project. Like the civil, the engineering part of the work, equipment, loss of equipment. You see, sometimes people building house, they start the decking on bamboo, and when the truck comes to pour the concrete, everything just fall apart, you know. And sometimes if you don't have contractors always, because people just, they just have this taboo way about insurance, and you know, but it's you safeguard yourself in the case something happens. Right, so you have the contractors always, but when the property is finished, then you need to convert it into a homeowners, right? And with the homeowners policy, you have your building is covered, right? And you have a liability aspect to it. So when you invite a friend home and they fall and they get damaged, there's that part of it, but the friendly nature of us in Grenada, then we go by a friend and we fall down and we break our foot. They come and look for us in the hospital and think, nice, we feel it's difficult to
Sue?
Not really to sue, you know, but to make sure that, you know, you're compensated for your damage. You understand?
Okay. All right.
And we have what you call the contents. You can insure your contents as well.
Okay.
You find that most persons more concerned with insuring the property, right? But your valuable contents, like especially for people who are renting, you know, especially.
You know what, Mr. Purcell? We're going to take a break right now. When we return, you're going to go straight into the contents of about insuring contents in a home, especially for tenants. All right. So you're watching A Closer Look by GUT Credit Union.
I'm reaching my dreams with GUT. They're the ones for me. I'm reaching my dreams with GUT. They're the ones for me. Since 1983, they've been serving the country, and we like all their financing, giving the people what they want, what they need, what they love. Come and join the family that's here for you all the way. From birth to graduation, your first job to your home, and your card through your golden years.
GUT Credit Union has been actively supporting nation building through its many sponsorships and the programs including financial literacy quiz, Pass the Torch Calypso program,
Welcome back to A Closer Look, which is the first in a series of webinars organized by GUT Credit Union. I am Sarana Mitchell, and I'm your host. Today with me are Superintendent Sylvan McIntyre, representing NADMA, as well as Mr. Marcus Purcell, representing Beacon Insurance Grenada Limited. Before we went to break, Mr. Purcell was talking about insuring contents in the home. Take it away.
Yeah, so you find, as I was saying earlier, most people don't really insure their contents. They more concentrate on insuring the property, right? And you might work hard to earn the things you have in your house. Your refrigerator might be $10,000. Your big flat screen TV might be at $3,000-$4,000. You know, it's a lot of money invest there. And in case if a hurricane and the roof is blown off, you need to have, you know, contents insurance to protect these things.
Okay.
Also, the people who renting, right? Especially if you're renting an unfurnished house, most of the items in the house you will have to purchase it to live there. The landlord wouldn't insure your contents for you, so you need to insure that. So in case there is a disaster or you have a broken pipe in the house and it flood out and the equipment get damaged, you could get these replaced. So it's important to take a stock of all your contents, the items in your house, and the associated value with it. Okay. And store it in the cloud. Email yourself, you know, so it's always there when you're ready for it. Because you might print it out and have it there and it could get wet. Or you get, you know.
Should you take pictures and so on?
Yeah, you take pictures and you upload it in a file with a value.
Okay. So you take pictures, you itemize, you put the value. Okay. All right, good. Now, in the event of damage by hurricane, what are the requirements for claim? So you come with the pictures and so on. Is that what you do?
Well,
and the duration to get indemnification, is that indemnified, sorry?
Yeah.
Right. So.
Well, what happens is normally you will have to report the claim to the insurer, right? To the insurance, they come to us. There's a form you fill out. Then we send in the addresses to estimate the cost of the damages. and then we process it and pay you. Even after Ivan, we paid 90% of our claims were paid within the first 2 months. Yeah.
So within a duration of 2 months?
Yeah. And there were persons, because it was the first major event in a lot of years, there were persons who damages was below the excess, and we still, we still pay the claims because it was the first, the first event in a long time.
Okay. So, okay. Could you share on some of the you are using some terminologies.
Yeah.
Help some of us, the lay people who do not understand some of the terminologies that you were using along the way, like
Okay.
indemnified, and you know the terminologies.
So indemnity is one of the main clauses of insurance. We really dealing with restoring it to your former value.
Okay.
Right? So, and that is what indemnity, utmost good faith and insurable interest. You must have an interest in the property that you insure. And you must speak the truth. You must be honest, utmost good faith. And a lot of persons, no, because you see people tend to, okay, if somebody have a property and the property is valued at $1 million, right? They tell themselves, well, the premium might be high. So they will tell you, oh, undervalued for $600,000. You understand? No, we just ask them to present to get it valued and present the valuation. Because what will happen in the event that you have structural damage and that goes over the value and you realize that the property was undervalued, you wouldn't get, they will have to give you average. So you wouldn't get back the cost, enough money to replace. So it's always good to speak the truth and to ensure you're building for the correct value, the replacement value. Mm-hmm. Right? And also, every 3 years, at least every 3 years, you should do a revaluation of your property. Because some people might have a one-story building, and then over the years they put on a downstairs, and they might even be renting out the downstairs. So that changes the nature of the contract. Yeah, so you need to contact the insurance and say, well, I've done some improvement to the house. So you revalue the property, and you talk to your insurance, and they may not increase the rate because the value of the property will be increased already. So they might give you the same rate. Okay. You understand? But we'll make sure that you are covered in case of you have some form of disaster and you have property damage.
You spoke of the need for educating people to get insurance, and this is a platform for such, but we might be just speaking to the choir. What do you recommend as someone in the education field about insurance? How would you go around getting people to change their mindset, to see the value of insuring their homes in the event of something occurring, like a disaster? What do you present to someone?
Probably I can show them some videos of Ivan. That, because you see, the thing is, people tend to be risk averse, Mm-hmm. So you use the psychology of pain. If they see videos with Ivan, and they will always bring memory. And it's that memory of Ivan that has caused them to rush to insure when they hear it has a name storm coming. But outside of that, we need to have more forums like these. Even the media houses need to engage. Every time they engage NADMA, they could engage insurance companies as well. Mm-hmm. And insurance companies on a whole need to do more on their own in terms of educating the people who we depend on for our living. We have that responsibility, yeah? And I'm guilty of it, but I can tell you, what I can tell you is that we have made some headway in terms of reforming the AGIC, the umbrella body for insurance. Mm-hmm. And going forward, you will see a lot more education in terms of insurance education. educating the people about insurance. Even when I was at the GUT Credit Union, we had some financial program for the young ones, and part of it was involve education. And we had to do that from the school level and get people to love insurance. Insurance is one of the main tenants, fundamental tenants in wealth building, because you can work your 30, 40 years to accumulate assets, and in the twinkle of an eye, you could just disappear. And if you don't have insurance to protect that and to replace it, you go on. I see people make millions, and then they have to spend millions changing blood because they didn't have health insurance.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they decide to die because they would have spent all the money they earn and never leave anything for the family.
You make a statement, they decide to die.
Yeah.
You said that in, like, for example, Gonzalo was coming and people came rushing. How long does it take for the process to get homeowners insurance? How long?
It's not long, probably about 30 minutes for the most.
Really?
Once you have the valuation and you come to us, we get it done. And something I want to encourage people to do is read their policy also and engage your insurance, you know. If you read the policy, if you find you understand something, call. Or if you come to do a policy before you leave, ask us to explain the policy for you. Because most people, when they come to get insurance, it's because the bank tell them to do so, or the financial institutions tell them to do so, so they come and get, or they come and do it under fear because a storm might come, right? They don't understand, well, they have a moral responsibility in terms of the excess, you know, or deductible, as we call it in the industry. So they need to read the policy. They need to engage the insurance companies to find out what am I covered for, rather than just watching and say, oh, I find that premium high, and I might go and go to a broker and say, see where you get the cheapest insurance from it. You know, these kind of things. Instead of looking for and most time, a lower premium doesn't really necessitate good coverage. Okay. You understand? So sometimes you have to, do your soul searching, call for yourself, right? And look for what you want covered in the policy and pay the price.
Okay. You spoke about tenants noting what they have in their home, those who are renting. Mm-hmm. Is there a certain name for that sort of policy?
Yeah, rental insurance.
Rental insurance.
Yeah,
and so it's totally different,
insurance.
And it's totally different from it is
the homeowners, yeah,
and then it's
have
rental.
The renters
okay,
yeah.
All right, great. Now, I have read that, for example, in the U.S. there are certain states where they would give you, for example, in the event like a damage, a percentage instead of paying the value, the cost of what was the policy. Do you think you'd ever go down that road because it becomes so expensive?
No. You see, what we do, every policy is reinsured, right? Mm-hmm. We fall under the grouping of Latin America and the Caribbean, right? Okay. We fall under, and there is a pool, as Mr. McIntyre was speaking about, when something happened, it might happen in a different island, right? So we didn't get much damage in Maria, Dominica, and them got. But as a result, because we belong to the pool, it affected the rate of premiums, So, and if you insure for the replacement cost, at Beacon, we promise to pay, and we keep our promises.
That's a good ad. Thank you very much, Joseph. So I just want to go back to Mr. Sylvan McIntyre. You spoke of in the event that there is a disaster, and it's not Grenada, COVID-19, and we would need to lend our service. Has SIDEMA come up with a plan how that would work out yet?
Yes, they have. There's definitely a plan for that. But before I speak a little bit to it, I'd just like to hinge onto my colleague's insurance aspect and we think in disaster management that insurance should offer a bit more incentive to homeowners to encourage them to become, make it more user-friendly in that term. And one of the ways is offering incentives. We know insurance companies have done that. Maybe you would speak about that later on as to how you can attract them. You spoke of the PR, etc. But yes, in the disaster fraternity, we found out that there need to be some innovative, attractive incentives that people want to insure their homes against certain types of peril.
You brought up incentives. Just quickly, have you tinkered around what would you add to make someone want to continue with the insurance? Like,
they would know. The insurers would definitely know what they need to do because they are in that kind of a business. But in terms of ensuring that, for instance, it depends on where your property is located. It may attract a certain type. It may affect the premium, etc. And if you encourage people to build in a particular area, and say if you build in an area that is considered to be of a particular nature, your premium could be less. If you ensure that you take certain hurricane preparedness measures, that your house is going to be built in a particular way, you have the straps, you can attract a percentage of deduction, etc. And so these kind of a little things that they would want to look at. So it's oh, you know what? If I go in and my plan shows that I have my house built in a particular way, that I will attract that. Maybe they have it already integrated, but they've not exposed it. So it's just off the head. One of the things I think that they really can do. But we've had that discussion at different levels that they need to make it a bit more.
Before we continue with Sidema, so Mr. Purcell, what do you have to add there?
Well, what Mr. McIntyre alluded to is our daily life, right? Because in underwriting the risk, we take all these things into consideration, right? Sometimes we will be passing by a house that is insured with us, and if there is a lot of bush and thing growing around it, we will get in contact with the owner and let them know they had to clean it up because that could be a hazard. Okay. It could cause, in case if there is a fire or something, they need to clean it up. Otherwise, that is threatening our livelihood. Okay. Yeah. So all these things is taken into consideration. Sometimes, if it's in a flood-prone area, we may not even underwrite the risk, right? But I want to zone in on something which is very important because you see, when someone spends the best years of their life, 15, 20, 30 years, working hard, take a mortgage, build a home, them supposed to understand the value of that and the importance of that. I don't want to put a gun to their head to tell them, secure this thing, especially if you have a family. We have to take some level of responsibility. Everybody can't be doing everything for you like that. You understand? You have to know what you have, Just as how you're bad for your beer when you're drinking it and you're bad for all these things, you have to bad for your hard-earned asset. We place too much emphasis on the wrong things. You understand?
That's where education comes in.
Exactly. Well, we will never really force somebody. For when something happens, they say, you old man, I make my insurance them. We won't know that. You have to have some level of responsibility.
Okay. So the responsibility and education. So when you educate people, it increases their awareness, and so it will push them to want to insure their homes where they put their hard-earned money.
Really,
Excellent.
And in some cases, it becomes part of the law in some countries.
Yes, but we're not.
And maybe people would not want to see that day when it's like a motor vehicle. There are some things that you must do to have a motor vehicle on the road. It's the law that you insure, but not so for a house. Maybe it's one of the considerations that economists or heads of state can consider whether to help in economic recovery, to ensure that you don't have extra burden. It would be an advantage because insurance is also a business. Exactly. You're not in it because you just want to help people and you're so nice. You are also in it because you would want to there's a livelihood out of insurance as well as the benefit of the other persons having to have that recovery made to them quicker than they normally would. It is also an advantage to the entire economy that the government or the state mechanism doesn't have to dig into so if you have, the more persons you have insured, the better for all of us. So we have to find innovative ways in ensuring that becomes attractive.
Excellent.
we can go on to the CDMA response mechanism as to how we would respond in this COVID environment. And so we've had since COVID weekly meetings. Now we're doing it bi-weekly. And so, but one of the things is that of testing to ensure that every person happen to respond to another country, he or she undergoes some level of testing.
Okay.
And whether or not territories would do a cross-border, whether you would do a waiver or whether there would be mandatory quarantine. How do you quarantine somebody coming to assist you for 14 days?
Exactly.
So it's the discussion on table right now, and as you recognize, the whole dynamics of COVID-19 is changing so rapid. So we have to be using what is called the zone system at the moment, because people right now coming from the declared green zone, they are not required to go into quarantine, but they're required to do a rapid test or so as they come through and all that. So it's the consideration that we're working through, and we know that there are territories that are also asking the Caribbean to waive the whole quarantine aspect, where persons may not have to quarantine or where they might have to be given responsibility to take care of their medicals, etc. These are some considerations that are on the table. So it is part of the discussion at the city level as to how we can respond to help each other and ensure at the same time we are not transferring COVID-19 into another territory and our persons going to help, they're not putting themselves in undue risk. So that is something that is definitely discussed. And one of the things is on ensuring that every country within the region has some level of PPEs. We've received some at the NADMA a couple of weeks ago. There is a bit of it coming again tomorrow, a shipment coming. And an aspect of it is to ensure that responders, not just regionally, all the persons who are involved with us in the whole response for disaster preparedness, we want to ensure that we have kits for them, that in the event that COVID becomes a community spread, that if our persons have to be responding, that they too are protecting themselves. We must protect the persons who are supposed to protect the protectees.
Excellent.
And that's one of the mechanisms that we have throughout the region.
Definitely. Well, I do hope, although it is expected to be a busy season,
Yes.
I do hope that we don't have to, because of COVID-19, have to take all these things into consideration. Well, you are watching A Closer Look, organized by GUT Credit Union, and we're going to take a break, but I want you to go to menti.com. We have some questions for you. Those of you viewing this, we want you to answer those questions, and when we come back, we will show the tally or let you know what the responses have been. Thank you. Welcome back to A Closer Look. I am Sarana Mitchell, and this is the first in a series of webinars organized by GUT Credit Union. We are talking about preparedness for hurricane. Are you prepared? Are you ready in a time of COVID-19? With me are Mr. Sylvan McIntyre, who's representing NADMA, and Mr. Marcus Purcell, Beacon Insurance, Grenada Limited. Before we went off to break, we were talking about, there's a question for you who are viewing, and it's on menti.com, that's MENTI.com, and you can vote. The question is, does your family have a hurricane preparedness plan in place? So you can go vote, and the code is 2260125. That's my apologies, 2660125. Is that correct? Yes. Excellent. So 2660125. That's the code to vote on menti.com. Now, one of our viewers, Miss Christine McSween, she has a question for Mr. Purcell. Does Beacon offer contents insurance to persons that rent?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And right now we have a promotion going on where she can get 10% off contents insurance.
Incentive?
Yeah. You understand? So we do incentivize our customers do the right thing, but at the end of the day, the onus is on them to make the decision.
So, okay, so you hear that, Miss McSween, 10% off for contents insurance. So get down there tomorrow to Beacon Insurance and get your things insured.
And we had Callis. We had Callis St. George, just before the junction. She can't miss the beautiful glass building.
Okay, so you heard what he said. Caliste in St. George. Beautiful glass building. For those of you who want to vote, the code is 2660125, and it's menti.com. Now, according to the poll so far, we are even. The question is, does your family have a hurricane preparedness plan in place? And yes, 50%, no, 50%. Grenada, we're even. We need to be more on the yes. Okay? Okay. And I'm seeing occasional going up, occasionally. So you're voting. Thank you for being a part of this. A Closer Look by GUT Credit Union. So, Mr. Sylvan McIntyre and, of course, Mr. Purcell, Sir Marcus Purcell, how can children help their parents in preparedness for hurricane season? How can children get involved?
There is one saying, local, that if you really want to get to the mother cow, you have to first be able to tame the calf. What does that mean? The entrance to the home, to the family, is through the child. If you want to invest, if you want to build for the future, you walk through the child. And so you mustn't, children are useful, and I call them instruments of development. And so what you would want to see in the future is what you would want to instill in the child. So as small as the child happens to be, you must try to find user-friendly at the age of the child, to introduce the child into what you would want. And they would develop that culture, that habit, into becoming a lifestyle. And so preparedness should start at that level. You teach the child when you want the child, not when the child shouldn't do something, or you give them a little tap on the wrist and say shouldn't do it. And then at times when the child becomes older, you speak to the child and show the child the advantage and the disadvantage. And never just tell the child, don't do. And that's one of the mistakes we make. We say don't do, but we don't give people the option or tell them what's the right thing to do. So you'd want to be able to teach the child, okay, to build a family disaster plan, it forms part of a discussion. Okay. And you make the item user-friendly. you mentioned making it child language as to how you want the child to understand and interpret safety. That's a really good way to start. And I think it's also the same for insurance, maybe.
Okay. We're about to wrap up, so tell me.
Well, you can have discussion in the home about your plan and, for instance, where the garbage bags will be. And, you know, in times of a hurricane or a named storm, you get them to pack all the contents and so computers, put them in garbage bags. So the clothes, if you have clothes, you know, you get them to put these things in garbage bag. Even sometimes you might be out shopping as a parent, shopping to get some last minute stuff. They will be home packing up the items and then making sure it's in bag. Everybody has their responsibility.
Excellent.
You know?
Thank you very much, Mr. Purcell.
And that's a plan right there. So you understand the family disaster plan.
Exactly.
Perfect.
So the kids know what they have to do.
Everyone know their stake in the pie or the plan.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Sylvan McIntyre, Superintendent Sylvan McIntyre of NADMA, and Mr. Marcus Purcell of Beacon Insurance. You were watching A Closer Look by Duty Credit Union. I am Serrana Mitchell. Thank you for joining us. Next week, we will be having guests Ms. Shauna Thomas Coffey and Jervis Dabrio, who is the ICT specialist in the Ministry of Education. They'll be talking about how to set up your student for success in a new learning environment. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.